When IO Interactive was deciding to dive back into their Hitman series with Hitman 2016, I was very happy to see Agent 47 come back. During the PS2 generation, stealth games were at an all-time high, with 3 great franchises leading the way. Hitman is consistently great and still going strong to this day. The entry in 2016 was going to be a bit odd when it came to its release schedule. This game was going to release episodically rather than as a full game. Every few months we would get a new level to dive into and enjoy. This release model had me skeptical, so I opted to wait for all the episodes to be released before I dove into it. When I actually dove into Hitman 2016, I was impressed with the game that I had found, along with how the episodic release could actually fit the Hitman formula very well. One of the best parts about the series is how its levels provide a large amount of replay value, and 2016's entry had all of that in mind. So while you only had one new level each month, that one level would provide you with hours of content. I do think that this format is not the best to tell a story, as 2016's story was much more enjoyable being able to go through it with all the levels in a row. But from a gameplay perspective, I was more on board with this episodic release than I initially thought I would be. Either way, this entry turned out to be a fantastic game. With Absolution going for a smaller and more linear approach to Hitman, this new entry was more in line with Blood Money, providing a wealth of freedom and replay value to the player. With all of this in mind, I was excited to see what Hitman 2 2018 was going to offer. This time it was going to be a full game up front, and if you owned Hitman 2016, then you could play all of those levels within Hitman 2. When I finally got my hands on Hitman 2, I was impressed with what they had to offer, and while it felt like a large expansion to Hitman 2016, it was still of very high quality. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you my review for Hitman 2 2018. The Hitman series is one of the last big-budget stealth games that is still going strong to this day. Many AAA games feature basic forms of stealth within their game. This is usually seen through hidden crouch, walking, and silently taking out enemies. Hitman, on the other hand, offers a true stealth experience and something so unique that you would kind of expect this out of an indie title. While players are still demanding for the return of other franchises like Splinter Cell and Metal Gear Solid, Hitman stands as a firmly planted pillar for stealth gameplay. There are many aspects to Hitman that make it great. One aspect that I found both rewarding and satisfying is how Hitman rewards the player for proper planning, patience, and execution. When you first enter a level in Hitman 2, it can be a bit intimidating, especially if you are new to the franchise. The levels found in Hitman 2 are quite large, and this is because the developers are trying to convey the scope and detail of the locations. The Miami level in Hitman 2 is a great example of this. You start the level off on a racetrack. The large map is essentially split into left and right sections with the raceway in the middle. The level features all the expected locations that one might see if they were actually there. There's an area for food trucks, an area to watch the race, restaurants, an underground area so that people can go between the left and right side, the show area, and an extensive office building. Throughout the entire level are people just going about their lives, along with the 2 targets that you are hunting down. As Agent 47, you feel like you are moving through a living area that exists even when you turn the game off. Your targets and all the NPCs have routines and things that they are doing. So when you start a level in Hitman 2, I take a similar approach that I have done in the prior entries. My first few times through a level, I call it the information gathering phase. I learn what areas are on the map, what disguises I can use, and what areas they will let me into. I see if there are any items or parts in the target's routines that I could exploit. This isn't the only way to tackle your first time with a new map as well. You could pick a direction and see where it takes you, or maybe you want to do one of the mission stories as a means to find opportunities to take out the target. Whatever you choose, you will find yourself learning about the map, your targets, along with the most efficient way to achieve your goals. This process of planning, patience, and execution is one of the best aspects about Hitman.
That was superb, my good man. Be back for more in a little while. Get out of my way, damn it.
Robert knocks down, Now for the heir to the Kronstadt Empire.
Since Hitman can have a decent learning curve to it, I really do like that the game features some guided kills for the player. You can choose to follow these at the start of the level, or you will encounter different opportunities while exploring the level. These things provide you with some direction on how to acquire some of the interesting kills. They do not completely handhold the player, but rather they help to get the player into the mindset of using the tools that the level provides. These were present within Hitman 2016, and I like how they sort to help you get your feet wet and build your confidence on playing Hitman. As you complete these and replay the map a few times, the levels will really hook you as you try to come up with new ways to take out your target. Hitman is a game about options. The iconic disguises return in this entry, and it's still just as awesome to grab a guard's uniform and slip past everyone like you work there. As you learn the map, you will find key disguises that provide you with unique kills or easier ways to avoid security and pass through checkpoints. To prevent the game from being too easy with the disguises, there are certain NPCs that can question or start to see through your disguise if you get too close to them. This allows for the disguise system to have proper balancing to it, along with providing tension and other variables to consider while in a disguise. Now, the options can really feel endless. You can find keys and key cards to get into restricted areas. You can toss an item to lure an enemy into a dark corner and then use that as an opportunity to knock them out. You can sabotage a piece of equipment and make that look like an accident. You can set up another NPC to accidentally kill one of your targets. And many of these examples I just provided are all provided within the Miami level. And when you think about it, the several levels that Hitman does provide, this is a lot of replay value in one game.
Hit it, Smith.
Both targets down.
Pathetic moron. Try. Christ, somebody help me!
While there is the incentive to play each of the level's sandboxes and see how you can approach each target, Hitman 2 provides a good amount of progression and rewards to the player that factors into this. For each of the levels, there will be challenges to complete. These will consist of executing different kills, finding certain items, discovering new areas, and a lot more. As you complete these challenges, you will earn experience points for that level. As you increase your level for that location, you will earn rewards specific to that level, along with items that you can bring into other levels. Some of these rewards are new weapons, a briefcase to hide your two-handed rifles or other equipment in, a universal lockpick, starting in different locations, along with new locations to smuggle equipment into. When you start a level, you can only take so much equipment with you, so this all factors into your planning and execution. Earning the challenges and leveling up is really rewarding. It can get really addicting to just keep playing the same level over and over again to complete all of them. When you do this, you will see how much effort and care was put into these levels to provide the player with these mini sandboxes with an extreme amount of replay value. Improvising is another great area of the game. Many times you will be trying to execute a creative kill or set one up and it doesn't go right. Now you can either go back to a previous save or you can try to make the best of it. Oddly enough, I found situations like this really enjoyable. Now I do want to mention the shooting present within the game. You will find and unlock a wealth of different weapons to use. The gun controls could benefit from being a bit tighter, but they do get the job done. The sound effects and impact of your shots is what really sells the weapons. The weapon sounds pretty good, and the shots will leave bullet holes in walls along with blood splatters from enemies. How the enemies react to your shots adds to the satisfaction as well. Enemies will respond wherever you shoot them. Their reactions can be pretty comical, but it provides some nice weight to your shots. When it comes to the firefights, the AI can be rather simplistic in their approach. They mainly will try to rush your position and in some cases try and flank you. In other situations, they will try and guard their bosses to prevent you from killing them. The AI isn't the best, but considering the AI needs to do more than most games, considering all of the variables that the player can throw at the AI, I find the AI to be generally pretty good. Now I want to be clear as well that gunplay is one of the many options provided to the player. There isn't a wrong way to play Hitman, but you are missing out on the detail and care that is provided within this game if you only play a level once. Hitman is all about experimentation, and it rewards you for that planning. You can mass murder everyone in the game, or you can try to blend in with the crowd and sneak past the guards. You can use the vegetation to hide bodies and slowly take out each of the target's guards. And on top of all of this, there are situations where you just want to go into the level and screw around with the AI. While you have guns and gadgets at your disposal, there's also battle axes, throwing stars, ninja swords, and plenty of items that lead into the darkly funny aspects of Hitman. The story in Hitman 2 may be very serious, but during the levels and with many of the options for the player, you will find the dark humor that the series has always had. Whether it is through some of the funny side conversations that you will overhear, or you can take a fish and beat people with it. I just love this game.
Apparently there's this splinter group of nut jobs running around.
Since Hitman allows you to roleplay as different people with the disguises, you can even make up your own stories as you mess around with the AI, and I never got tired of throwing different items in the environment at people. Before I mention the story, I do want to elaborate on a prior point again. Since the levels are extensive and immersive, each level honestly feels like a completely different game at times. After you have worked to achieve mastery in one level, when you start another one, everything is new. You will have new areas to use for your kills, along with new situations to identify and take advantage of. Like I said, this is a game that rewards the player for their time that they put into it. When it comes to the story, the narrative picks up where 2016's entry left off. The entire story here feels like a middle part of a complete story rather than a complete experience from a narrative standpoint. The story here features Agent 47 and Diana working together to take down a threat that emerged from the prior game, along with some mysteries from their past. Without any spoilers, I did enjoy the story that was at play here. 2016 started this interesting mystery with shadowy figures and organizations that made for an enjoyable narrative. That same tone and atmosphere is carried over into Hitman 2. I love how Hitman has been going strong for several years, and that Agent 47 has had the same voice actor the entire time. His voice is iconic, and he does a great job again here. The one downside with the story is how the cutscenes are now presented. In 2016, all the cutscenes were presented in this high quality CGI. In Hitman 2, they are just still images. While I understand that during this time, IO Interactive gained back the rights to their Hitman IP and was not working with Square Enix anymore. And my guess is that they chose to focus their efforts on gameplay rather than the presentation of their cutscenes. Hitman 2's cutscenes are a regression from the prior game, but the still images are still handled pretty well here, and get the same tone and atmosphere from the prior game. I do wish that they just used the in-game graphics for the cutscenes rather than just still images. All of the level introductions and mission briefings are really slick and look great.
Good afternoon, 47. Your destination is the annual Global Innovation Motor Race in Miami, Florida. After analyzing the data from Reynard's computer, the case is clear. The Providence defectors are Robert and Sierra Knox, head of robotics developer Kronstadt Industries.
When it comes to the flaws, the regression in the cutscenes is really the only big one that I can identify. I did have some situations of infinite loading with IO Interactive servers, and the game did crash on me once. While annoying, these things did not ruin my experience. Another thing to note is that the DLC levels do feature cutscenes with the in-game engine. These look great, and I wish that this was used for the main game cutscenes. Overall, this is a fantastic game. Hitman 2 is an underrated game. It deserves so much more attention than it received when it came out. It delivered a high-quality game that is packed with content, and on top of that, it was not praised enough for letting you play Hitman 2016's levels in Hitman 2. This is something that is rarely done, and it should be commended for. As a longtime Hitman fan, I did miss the excellent score of Jesper Kyd, and while the soundtracks in these recent entries are not the same, they are still pretty good. Hitman 2016 and Hitman 2 are games that provide loads of options to the player, along with rewarding the player for their time, patience, planning, and execution. Learning the ins and outs of a level and executing them effectively never gets old. When combined with the enjoyable story and dark humor, Hitman 2 is a game that you do not want to miss, especially if you've been craving an excellent stealth game. Thank you very much for watching.